Welcome, Lord Dalton. It's an honor to meet you. So far as I know, this is not your first time in Korea. What brought you to Korea this time?
It's always a great privilege and a pleasure for me to come back to Korea. I've been several times in the years when I served both in the House of Commons and the House of Lords. And this time I've been invited by Credo to come and talk about human rights issues. And I was really delighted to have the opportunity of speaking in the National Assembly as a guest of the Ministry for Reunification to talk about the situation in North Korea, where I've also visited. I've been there 4 times. But in addition to that, to talk at meetings about bioethics and other challenges that are facing both of our countries. In the United Kingdom, we have a very vibrant and very successful Korean community and add enormously to the life of Great Britain. We are great allies with one another. And of course, we also fought alongside you during the Korean War. 1,000 of our British servicemen lost their lives in the Korean War. Small numbers in comparison with the millions of Koreans who died. But the liberties and the freedoms that you enjoy in South Korea are something we enjoy too. We're both parliamentary democracies, and I come as a parliamentarian, first and foremost, from the United Kingdom to bring my greetings and to show my solidarity with the people of this great country.
You had a busy schedule in the last 5 days. First, on February 10th, you gave a keynote speech at a seminar organized by MP 태영호, the Minister of Unification, and Credo. Would you tell us how the seminar was?
The seminar was very well organized, and I was delighted to see so many young Koreans who were there, including high school boys and girls, who all raised their concerns about upholding human rights. And I think that's something we hold in common, not least because both countries, the United Kingdom and the Republic of Korea, are signatories to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And there are 30 articles in that famous declaration, the third of which is the right to life. And of course, that is the supreme human right, that if you deny the right to life, none of the other rights are worth anything whatsoever. So we were exploring that issue, and particularly again in the context of 2 other things. One, the 1948 Convention on the Crime of Genocide, and how routinely that charter that was supposed to stop anything like the Holocaust from ever happening again has happened all over again. Why is that? And also, this is the 10th anniversary of the United Nations Commission of Inquiry report into North Korea, which found that crimes against humanity are being committed in North Korea. And so we explored all of those issues. There were some wonderful speakers on the platform. We had a doctor, a woman from North Korea, who talked about the gravity of the health challenges in North Korea. But we also had lawyers, we had people who have been working in human rights organizations to shine a light on some of the terrible, wicked things that happen to people in North Korea.
Okay, I'd like to ask about what you emphasized in your keynote speech.
I started by talking about the 75th anniversary of those 2 great declarations, the Genocide Convention and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, both of which were promulgated in 1948. And I talked about a young Jewish lawyer called Raphael Lemkin, who invented the word genocide. It comes from the Greek and the Latin, and what it means is genos, family, and side, which is the cutting of the family. And why did he choose that? Why did he invent and choose that word? It was because over 40 of his own family had been murdered by Hitler and the Nazis in the Holocaust. And he wanted to get the world to commit itself to stop this crime above all crimes from ever happening again. And I recalled in my remarks how it has happened again and again. So in Rwanda, in Cambodia, in Bosnia, now in Xinjiang, we see it again. The Yazidis, I went to northern Iraq in 2019 and saw the terrible atrocities that had been committed against the Yazidis and the Christian minorities there by ISIS and other genocidal organizations. And then there are historic genocides, like the genocide against the Armenians and the Assyrian Christians from the beginning of the 20th century, which many countries have still not recognized to be a genocide. So I was arguing in my remarks that we need to update the Genocide Convention, and we need to try and stop the use of vetoes in the Security Council by countries that are complicit in genocide, such as Putin's Russia or Xi Jinping's China, we should stop the use of the veto when those kinds of crimes have been committed, and it should be possible for the International Criminal Court to then hold to account those who have been responsible for committing those outrageous deeds.
You had a meeting with Archbishop Johnson. Yeah, we'd like to hear about your special relationship with Korean Catholicism.
I'm an admirer of the Catholic tradition in Korea. Of course, it's a historic, long-standing tradition. It first came to Korea unusually through Koreans themselves. So they were not missionaries, they were Koreans who went to Peking over 200 years ago and brought back the Christian faith. And these were young people, but they met with Catholic priests in Peking and then came back and founded the Catholic tradition here. And they paid a very heavy price. Some estimates say as many as 8,000 people were martyred for their Christian beliefs. And amongst those, of course, was the very first Catholic priest in Korea, Andrew Kim, and his story is a very sacred and precious story. And of course, I come from a country where people have also been persecuted for their religious beliefs. Every day in Westminster, where the House of Commons and House of Lords sits, I walk through the hall there, the Westminster Hall, where Thomas More stood trial, a great lawyer, who said that he was the king's good servant, but he was God's first. And he refused to renounce his beliefs, his religious beliefs, and for that he paid the ultimate price. He was executed. I might also add that when the people of Korea were struggling for democracy, it was Cardinal Stephen Kim who provided Kim Dae-jung and others who were fighting for democracy with sanctuary in your great cathedral here in Seoul. And I always think of this story whenever I come here, because democracy doesn't happen overnight. It comes through struggle. And just like Pope John Paul II and the Catholic communities in Poland became the catalyst for change in overthrowing communism in Poland, so overthrowing military dictatorship in South Korea, the Catholic community played an honourable part in that, and it's not something that should be forgotten.
You are well known as a devout Catholic. I heard that the phrase "choose life" in your coat of arms, this image, is quoted from the Bible.
I don't know about being devout, but I certainly believe in the Christian faith. And when I was made a member of the House of Lords, I had the chance to choose a coat of arms. This is one of the privileges that you're given by the monarch, by the Queen. She's now sadly died, but she gave me my place in the House of Lords, and I was able to choose a coat of arms. So I chose symbols in the coat of arms that said something about me. And if you look at my coat of arms, you'll see at the top a cross, but it's an unusual cross. It's the Coptic cross from Egypt, where I'd done a lot of work with the Coptic community there because of the persecution they suffer. And you'll see two bells on the cross, and my wife's first name is Bell, before we married, and I wanted to commemorate her. And then you'll see two birds on either side of the coat of arms, and these are called the liver birds. They're actually the phoenix rising from the ashes, but the liver birds are the birds in my city of Liverpool, one of the great cities in England, and for any of your viewers who follow Premier Football League, then they will have watched Liverpool play, I'm sure, but these birds are the birds of Liverpool. So they're in my coat of arms because I had the privilege to be elected by the people of Liverpool as their Member of Parliament. And then in the heart of the shield is the Holy Spirit, because I think that we need the guidance and the wisdom of the Holy Spirit all of the time, because we are such foolish people that we make many mistakes, so we need the Holy Spirit. And then two words, and this is taken from the book of Deuteronomy. You're allowed to have a motto on, and people have very complicated mottos, sometimes they're in Latin. I wanted just two English words, and they're taken from the book of Deuteronomy in the Old Testament, and where this choice is given to the people of Israel. I've laid before you a blessing and a curse. I've laid before you a choice of death or life. And what should we do? We should always choose life.
Yeah, I see.
So that's an explanation about, that's the first time I have ever been asked to explain my coat of arms. So.
This image is from your website. Tell me about these words. Why do you choose this?
Yes, I chose these words for my website because they're words from J.R.R. Tolkien, and some people who are watching the interview will have read his books or seen the movie, The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, and others will have read the books of his friend C.S. Lewis, who wrote The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, the Narnian Chronicles. Both men were very committed in their faith, and they were both of them academics. They were very learned men who were professors at the University of Oxford. And I love the stories that they wrote because it's about the overcoming of evil, but it's also about the overcoming of impossible odds. And sometimes we look at the world and we think it's so big and there's so many problems and there's so many challenges, and we wonder, can we overcome any of these things? And these words give me hope. There's some good in the world and it's worth fighting for. So however big the obstacles appear, we have to be like the hobbits inside J.R.R. Tolkien's books. And these are small, inconsequential people who, on the face of it, you would say they can't overcome these great mighty armies, but they do in the end. And they do so through friendship, through solidarity and determination. And I think that these remind me of my own upbringing, that my parents, my father was a soldier, he fought in the Second World War. One of his brothers was killed in the Royal Air Force fighting Nazism, which was the great evil of the day. My mother was Irish. Her first language was Irish, not English. And she believed passionately in the idea of community, of people holding together. And we had some words in Irish on the wall of our kitchen when I was growing up. And the words said, "It is in the shelter of each other's lives that the people live. You live because of your solidarity with one another." And I think this is what we must do, is we have to have alliances, coalitions, we stand alongside one another in fighting the evil in the world. It was a great hero of mine, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was a Protestant theologian and who stood against Nazism. He was ultimately executed by the Nazis. But he said, not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. So we have a duty to speak, we have a duty to act.
I'm so sad it's already time to wrap up. Thank you very much again for sharing an important message with Korean society. Leslie, please say a word to the viewers.
Well, I think my final word to your viewers is to say thank you to the people of Korea for the bravery and the courage which you constantly show. One day, someone came into my university office in Liverpool. My secretary said, "There's a young man from North Korea has just come to the university," and we didn't know anything about him. And he told me his story. He'd been tortured, he'd escaped, and that young man now has become the first North Korean to get a university degree and a master's degree from a British university. That young man has got married and has 2 little children, and he stood as a candidate in the elections in Britain this year. This is a boy who escaped from North Korea. This should give all of your viewers hope. And I think that reminds me of the story from Greek mythology about Pandora's box. Everything was taken out of the box, and the one thing that was left when everything else had gone was hope. And we've got to give people hope in their lives. And I think of people like Timothy, the young man I've just described. I think the overcoming of impossible odds, of making things happen that everyone says, oh, you can't do that. And I always say to my own children, there's no such word as can't. You can make things happen if you set yourself to the task, but it doesn't happen by accident. You have to put your energy and your efforts into making this world a better place.
Yeah, I would say we should take your message to heart. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. 법률방송이 마련한 특집 더 메시지 북한 인권 생명 데이비드 알톤 영국 상원의원과 함께했는데요. 저희가 마련한 시간은 여기까지입니다. 시청해 주셔서 감사합니다.